as you were going there at the end, I'm like, how's he going to work this switcheroo? How's he going to go from talking all these great things about the Jaguars? How's he going to switch to the Chiefs in the end? And you didn't. So that's great. We're on the same side.
And welcome to Pocket Protection in association with TDR, brought to you by Bet99 Sportsbook. Every game starts at Bet99.com. We are responsible gambling. I'm Ryan Doyle. That is Steve Budin. Here we are, my friends. Oh, how some of the mighty have fallen.
Yep. And the key is, if you're still sticking around with your bankroll, consider yourself blessed.
Absolutely. And we had one hell of a hot weekend. I watched the show back after the weekend that was the whole Wildcard weekend. And, man, we were red hot. Barely a wrong pick between the two of us.
Well, you had the Cowboys. We both had the 49ers. Those were our best bets. Those won easy. The only real surprise to me was how tough the Dolphins were with their third-string quarterback and the amazing comeback from the actual best team in Florida, the Jaguars, which we both were on as well. Lastly, I just want to say I said the Vikings were a fake. I called the Giants, and I was right.
Yeah, we were finally right about Minnesota, and thank God to get them out of the playoffs. I don't know about you, but I was sick and tired of seeing them show up. I'm glad the Giants dispatched them in typical New York Giants style. We'll talk about the Giants a little later on in the show and their matchup with Philly, but let me just say this about what the Giants do as an organization. They have found an identity over the years, not just with this team, but with several incarnations of the New York Giants, whether it was Phil Simms, whether it was Eli Manning, now it's Daniel Jones. And you always have those outlier players that we saw on the weekend that are part of that New York Giants mystique, let's say. They've got a strong defense. They play very well, solid buttoned-up defense. And then there's always that bit player that nobody's got on their fantasy team that ends up making you money. That's the Giants' key to success.
Yeah, and if you compare them to the other New York teams like the Jets, and possibly even the Knicks, you say to yourself, this organization is way ahead of the mark. I got to tell you, just switching gears for a second, one of the things that I found myself thinking about, after the wild card games was, number one, Lamar Jackson, right? He's going to be looking for a new home. He's going to be securing generational wealth from his next team, and rightfully so. But without a contractual commitment from Baltimore, I don't know about you, but I don't blame him for not testing a half-healed knee and putting it all at risk and committing to a team who hasn't committed to him long-term. There's a lot of teams that need quarterbacks. You got the Jets, the Dolphins, depending on how you feel about Tua, the Raiders, the Broncos, the Titans, the Colts, the Texans, the Commanders, the Buccaneers, now with Tom Brady, coming to an end, the Saints, Falcons, and the Panthers, plenty of possible homes for Jackson. And for me, I'm rooting for him. I hope that he gets the money he deserves and finds a home that with a team and an organization that's willing to back him. I haven't seen that from Baltimore. And then the other thing I was thinking about with your Bills, is on the surface, right? They're slogging a little bit through the postseason. But, I look for the under-the-radar moves that they made, the drafted players, etc., to start to show out now. Hines returned 2 kicks for 2 touchdowns last week. Clutch catches from Cole Beasley and 5th-round draft pick Khalil Shakir altered the course of their last game. So I'm going to look past the Buffalo starters, because it's often the supporting cast that you'll find will step up in the playoffs that change a deep run to a Super Bowl team. I think that could be the case here with the Bills.
You mentioned quarterbacks and landing spots, and you did mention the name Tom Brady, who was obviously dispatched against the Cowboys. A pretty ugly loss for Brady. I know he's a guy who's made you money in the past. Yep. There are people talking retirement with Tom Brady. I don't think that's going to be the case. And when I look at it, my landing spot has not changed for Tom Brady. I believe that Tom Brady will be a member of the San Francisco 49ers next year. And you might think I'm absolutely fucking crazy. But hear me out for a second. He wants to go to a place that's got weapons. If the Niners do not win the Super Bowl this year, they're still going to start looking around. They've got lots of trade bait when it comes to people like Brock Purdy and Trey Lance. Whatever happens to Jimmy G, obviously that was a one-year deal, so he's going to be in the mix somehow, but might be on his way out anyway. I think Tom Brady, with his folks living out there and the whole bit, I think he lands with that Niners team if they don't win the bowl this year.
Okay, and I'm going to guess Miami for Tom Brady. I'm here. I have some interesting real estate contacts in this town. He's fully invested in Miami real estate. So got a big, beautiful house he's working on. So, I think he will wind up in Miami. So we'll have to put that on the side. shelf it, see what happens, and winner take all.
Let's talk about winner take all. Let's get into the two big games for Saturday. We'll obviously save the next two games for the pod that'll be coming your way in a couple of days' time. But this one, we'll start off with the Kansas City Chiefs, who we've not seen in action in the playoffs. They obviously had the bye. They are -9.5 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. The total here, 52.5. Steve, this is a Jacksonville Jaguars team that just will not die. They will not lie down. Trevor Lawrence keeps making sure of that they're going to figure out a way to get a win and get a W. We saw it last weekend. Is it going to happen again here?
And I said last weekend, they were like Bruce Willis and Die Hard, and they are. Look, when it comes to the NFL playoffs, Ryan, nothing is inevitable. In other words, top seeds don't always win. Last year in the NFC, top seed Green Bay was KO'd by the Niners right out of the box. And failing to cover spreads is even more likely for these top seeded teams. Remember the Chiefs against the Browns 2 years ago. And look, Andy Reid knows this, and now he's going to face his one-time protege, Doug Peterson, played quarterback and assistant for Reid in the past. It's round 2 of the teacher-pupil matchup. Round 1 went to Reid, 27-17 mid-season at Arrowhead. Chiefs jumped out to a 20-0 lead in that game, I think late in the second quarter, never really looked back. However, this was before Jacksonville got hot, before they won 6 straight, including that historic rally in the wild card round versus the Chargers, a game that you talked about earlier, a game that saw them fight back from 27-0 to win it. This is the new Jacksonville that emerged after that midseason loss to the Chiefs. They beat the Ravens, the Cowboys, the Titans. Last week they beat the Chargers, and all of those games, right, featured fightbacks and comebacks. And like I said last week, this team really reminds me of the Bengals from last year. One thing I can admit, though, is that Lawrence is not going to best Mahomes in that head-to-head matchup, right? But he can play good enough for his supporting cast to pull one out. The Chiefs have been my sleeper, my sleeper Super Bowl pick since midseason. I've been mentioning it on the show. They weren't foolproof for gamblers this year, especially at home. They covered only 2 of 8 at home, one of those by half a point versus Jacksonville. And they were just 2-6 versus the spread down the stretch in the last 8. They were also only 2-3 versus the line in the playoffs. That's the past 2 seasons. I think the Chiefs win this game, but I do think the Jaguars cover. There's value there in the line. I'm going to take the dog and the points.
Okay, I'm still not convinced.
By the way, on the total, if I had to lean one way or the other, I play the over. I mean, it figures to be plenty of scoring in this game. Nothing real technical there, just a feeling.
All right, there we go. Now Steve and I are going to be on complete opposite sides of the first game for the week. This is going to be fun. Right. Not only are we on opposite sides on the total, because I do like the under here. I think 52.5 is too high. And it's basically, that's premised on what I'm about to say when it comes to the Jags. This defense can play football. These dogs can go and they can hunt when they want to. I don't love Patrick Mahomes the way I did a couple of years ago. I still think he's taken a step back this year. Maybe it's just my eyeball test and maybe my gut test, but there's just something off. We'll talk about the Eagles because the Chiefs do remind me a lot of the Philadelphia Eagles in that there's just something off with this team. When they were rolling, let's call it the glory days, the Chiefs were dominant. You knew that if you were going to play a game at Arrowhead Stadium, that you were going to likely get rolled because they had every weapon possible for Patrick Mahomes to do his magic. But I think we've seen Houdini come out of the box one too many times. And I think the Jags, having one game under their belt against the Chiefs, are going to put up one hell of a good fight. I'm not going to take them on the money line, although it's very tempting. I think I saw plus 310 this morning. That's a very healthy number and very tempting for me. But the Chiefs can't cover spreads. And I think last time around, sure, they covered against the Jaguars. I think the second time around is going to be very hard and very frustrating for Patrick Mahomes. I expect the Chiefs to win this one, but likely on a last-second field goal. They've been known to do that kind of thing. So give me the Jags plus 9. Why are your hands up? What are your hands up for? What's going on?
We're on the same side.
Oh, you're talking? Okay.
I said I thought the Chiefs would win, but I think the Jags would cover, and I'm taking the points with the dog. We're on the same side. We're on the. As you were going there at the end, I'm like, how's he going to work this switcheroo? How's he going to go from talking all these great things about the Jaguars? How's he going to switch to the Chiefs in the end? And you didn't. So that's great. We're on the same side. Business as usual.
I'm Irish, Steve. I'm Irish. I like a good fight every now and then.
Maybe we're on Polish opposites.
Yeah. Okay. Then we're both on the Jacksonville Jaguars getting the 9.5 points. Okay, slight difference then on the total at the very least. I guess give me a fighting point on that. That's too funny. We're going to come back. We've got lots more to come, including a dissection of the Philadelphia Eagles against the upstart New York Giants. A nice, healthy number there, over 7. The total 48. We're going to come back and dissect it as Pocket Protection continues after this.
As a world champion, when I walked out of the tunnel, I knew I prepared to win. I still do today. Every game starts at Bet99.net.
Welcome to Bet99.net, Canada's home for all your favorite free-to-play casino games, slots, live dealer tables, and progressive jackpots, including Mega Moolah. At Bet99.net, you could be a winner today.
Welcome back to Pocket Protection in association with TDR, brought to you by Bet99 Sportsbook. Every game starts at Bet99.com. We are responsible gambling. I'm a guy looking for an argument. Steve Budin is putting me in my place. Everything is right with the world. The Philadelphia Eagles, a team that, obviously was dominant during the regular season. Obviously, a lot has been written about the Eagles. Took them a while to close the show and get that number 1 seed in the playoffs, but they finally did get there, and that earned them a bye last week. Now we're looking at the Eagles minus 7.5 against the New York Giants, who played an almost flawless game against the Vikings. Total here is 48, Steve.
Yeah, and I would say don't let those Eagle fans fool you. They love to talk smack this time of the year when they're in it to win it like they are now. But trust me, deep down, they're worried. And rightfully so. I mean, being the best team in the league headed into December doesn't always count for much in January. It wasn't the same Philly team you mentioned closing the season as it was most of the way when the Birds stayed unbeaten, into mid-November. They were considered the best in the NFL at 13-1 in mid-December. This is a team that literally limped across the finish line to barely hang on to that top seed you talked about and get that first round bye. Eagles hit the postseason coming off of 4 straight against the spread losses. So gamblers not too happy with them. And the real concern is, how healthy is quarterback Jalen Hurts and his throwing shoulder, right? He looked less than amazing in his return game versus the understrength, undermanned Giants in the regular season finale. He passed for what I would consider a modest 229 yards. He had no touchdowns. He had a pick. All in all, it was an unimpressive 22-16 win. Another thing is, this is not the New York Giants of January 8th. The Giants rested most of their starters. There was no Jones, no Barkley. The Giants are going to start a healthy and rested Jones and Barkley, the same squad that ended the Minnesota Magic last week. Jones, to me, man, he's becoming a real NFL quarterback. Hard to say anything else about him. He passed for 301 yards, ran for 78 more, including 7 runs for first downs in mini. Also, since getting pummeled by the Eagles, and a healthy Hurts, 48-22 on December 11th, the Giants, have not only avoided spread losses in 5 straight, but their defense has reemerged as a force. This is really important in the postseason. They've only allowed 315 yards per game in their last 3 regular season games. They held the Vikings last week to 332. That's way below their season average. The bottom line to me, this isn't the same Eagles team. This isn't the same Giants team. I can't help but remember, with everything to play for in the final week of the regular season, Philly had their hands full with the Giants' backups. Hurts' health is questionable. Jones is coming into his own. I'm going dog again here. Dogs are barking. Giants plus the points.
Yeah, I'm going to go crazy on this because I like the Giants to win this game outright. I think that the blueprint was set. I think that, Brian Daboll, talk about a coach that's come into his own. He was obviously the offensive coordinator, did a great job with Josh Allen. You're seeing that reemerge as sort of the narrative with Daniel Jones. He's very capable of controlling the mistakes that Daniel Jones once made. He looks like a very buttoned-up, proper quarterback. I also think that Brian Daboll is going to take a lot from that game you mentioned where the Eagles played the Giants backup, that the blueprint is already set for beating this team. Giants hung around in that game again and again and again. I've been saying for weeks, as have you, that Jalen Hurts, that injury, it looks suspect to me. It looks bad, kind of like Matt Stafford did all season. A little similar there for me. So I don't know what's to like about the Philadelphia Eagles here. The line is 7.5, which is a beautiful number because it gets me over a touchdown. So I'm definitely going to take the Giants getting 7.5. But I like the Giants to win this game. Money line play, plus 300. I backed off on it with the Jaguars. I'm going all in on this. The only caveat I would put on it, Steve, and I'm curious to get your take on it, was what we saw last week part of the Giants' offense really waking up and clicking, or was it just a lousy Minnesota Vikings defense? Because there is a possibility that it's the latter.
No, I think it's a combination of both, but in the same respect, when I would say to you, don't snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. I think it's a good pick here, and I like the boldness of the money line on $1,000 bet. I'd like to see you go 750 plus the points. 250 on the money line, get yourself 1,500 on the win, with a much less of a risk involved. I think that's a great bet. I would hate to see the Giants lose one in the end or get that backdoor cover and you don't collect that ticket at this stage of the season. I do like the Giants. I'll be rooting for them to win, and I have a bad shoulder, historically from riding horses. Yeah. So, I fell, on it, more than once. And it wasn't until I got to surgery where they put the titanium hooks in and fixed my rotator cuff that I've actually, 1 year later after surgery, it's better than it ever was. Devoid of that type of fix for his shoulder, I just don't see how it can affect him.
Great piece of advice there, by the way. If you missed it, Steve's basically saying, take a little slice of that money line, but also back your play up with the spread so that at least you're going to get some type of outcome. And, who knows? You cash both tickets, fantastic, but at least you've got that insurance in your back pocket, right?
Yep, that's exactly right.
Yeah, and he's the bionic man. He'd know. 48 is the total. I'll just throw this in very quickly. I do like this game to go under. I don't think you're going to see a lot of points based on Hurts being hurt and based on the Giants' defense probably having a very solid day. So I'm on the under in this game as well. I know, boring, but hey, it's our lives. That's how we make money around here.
Steve, nothing boring about cashing tickets.
There's nothing boring about cashing tickets. We will be back, of course, later in the week. We'll give you a full breakdown. Cincinnati-Buffalo is going to be an interesting one to call, as is Dallas and San Francisco. We'll give you our take on both of those games and where your money should be headed as we continue through the week. Steve, always a pleasure, sir.
Good to be here. Let's get the money.
Absolutely. Pocket protection in association with TDR, brought to you by Bet99 Sportsbook. Every game starts at Bet99.com. We are responsible gambling.